there are only two main jobs left to do on this build. Putting the seat on. We're going to have a rear fender as well. Putting the seat on and doing the wiring. And the CDI is actually going to go under the seat, so I'm probably going to make that all one video. That'll be this video. But what I really wanted for this build, if you take a look at this footage from outside in the sun, look at that line from the top tube all the way back, that long slant. That's what I really wanted to keep with this. I wanted a seat that would go all the way down, slammed down on that top tube, and just perfectly match that line because I think it looks great. But what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to permanently alter anything on this bike. I thought it would be cool to have this completely reversible. So I didn't want to cut this off here. And then, you know, if I ever decided to take the motor off, then I'd kind of be screwed. So I came up with a solution that works pretty well. I still would prefer to have a seat all the way down here. I think it really looks great not to interrupt that line. It's just really nice looking. So what I bought was this mini bike seat, and in order to get it down as far as I could, I cut a hole in the bottom of it. So part of the seat post goes up in here. This is just a door hinge, a T-hinge for a shed or something. A little bit of a stylized shape. I only weigh 145 to 150 pounds. I wouldn't suggest that anyone do this. This is what I'm doing. We'll see how it holds up. And this end here is just going to be strapped down with a rubber-lined U-clamp. And then the rear fender, this is actually a front fender to a kit, but the rear one is like really, really super long. So you'll see how this short fender looks on there. It just is going to fit onto this same T-hinge in the back like that. All right, I'll show you kind of sort of how it's going to look, and then we'll get into putting it together. Now, this last hole on the hinge lines up with the hole on this support tube here that's used for like attaching a fender or something. So we just bury the seat post in that hole, and then this T-bracket gets held up like that. Now, that interferes a little bit with that line. I think the seat looks a little big, but for now, this is the best thing I can do. That's the plan. We're going with it. I don't know, maybe someday down the road I might have someone, if I could come up with something where I can really get this seat all the way down. I know I would prefer it, but it would probably involve cutting this post off, so I don't know that I ever really want to do that. Maybe I'll want to do that at some point, but for now, here we go. Okay, and then with that on there, the rear fender will connect to this other hole in the T-hinge, the one that's in the center, and well, it's a little difficult to do right now. You'll get a better idea later, but that's going to sit on there. roughly like this. So we got kind of a bobber rear fender that ends right over the hub. The only thing I don't like about it is that it doesn't, you can see some of this metal piece here. This was just the piece for the front and I just bent it. It had a different shape. I just bent it and tried it and took it off and bent it some more and put it back on and bent it some more until I got it right where I wanted it. Now I know that this slotted hole is going to go through this middle one, but I actually forget right now whether I need to drill a second hole so that this won't turn. But I forget whether it needs to be drilled here or there. So we're going to pop this on and temporarily put this back on the bike. So I'm hoping that when I drill this other hole that I line it up right so that the fender doesn't point off to one side or the other. I need to mark that space somehow. Masking tape to the rescue. Okay, that'll do. Alright, let's see what size this hole is. It's about 4.6 millimeters. Just find a drill that's a bit that's about that size. Alright, this 3/16 bit should do the job. If it doesn't line up, I'll just get the Dremel out and I'll make this a slot so I have some adjustment. All right, I think that'll work. Okay, so let's go over some more of the plan here. So I think that's going to work. I'll have enough room to make minor adjustments. This is how I'm going to connect the front of the seat. It's just a rubber padded, flexible, somewhat flexible U-clamp. So all this is really going to be doing is kind of holding the front seat down. Going to add some Going to add probably some inner tube, some old inner tube right here, just to cover up these staples. CDI will be here. Spark plug wire is going to come down here, and it makes a nice S turn. Looks pretty good, I think. So that's the next stage, deciding where the CDI is going to go exactly and getting that screwed onto the bottom. I want these screws somewhere around there. So yeah, let's see about putting some padding right here over these staples to keep this from chewing away at the top tube. That actually worked pretty well. Okay, so that may not be too bad. Just to keep these big old staples from scratching up my sticker and getting into the paint and stuff. Alright, let's just call that done. So now we need to get this on the bike and get our front clamp on. I'm going to need some wood screws for that too. Alright, so now we're going to get this seat on. We're going to attach the back here, and then we're going to work on getting this clamp secured to the front. Can't see. Well, my battery died in the middle of getting this on, but it's on there. We'll have to see how this holds up. It's pretty secure in the back. This strap being screwed into wood under here, I am not terribly confident. I mean, this will last for a while, I'm sure, but I feel like I'm gonna need a better solution at some point in the future. But for now, we're going with it. All right, so the plan is to go something like this. I'll probably cut this a little bit long at first and see what I want to do with it. All right, so I'm going to cut this back here. It's probably a little bit long, but I can always cut more off. I can't put more back on it. Whoops. That's too long, right? Let's cut it back here. Maybe I'll cut a little bit more off. Okay, there's only one job left in the build process, and that's the wiring. My CDI is under the seat. And my plans for the wiring is to have it go down between the tube and the shift kit housing. And I don't think I'll be able to, I showed you in another video, I drilled a hole in the bottom of this shift kit housing. Probably can't see it. So the wires are going to run underneath the motor and up into the shift kit housing, come out here and attach. So they aren't long enough to do that, so I'm going to cut these wires in here and solder in a length of wire, and then put these clip ends on the other end so I can plug them in. Same thing with the kill switch. I'll cut these tabs off and then put in a longer length of wire till I can reach this and plug them in. And all or most of that is going to be hidden, whoops, all or most of that will be hidden inside this expandable wire cover. I also have some shrink tubing. Now I'd like to have one continuous piece of this housing covering these wires, going in to the back of the shift kit and coming out here, probably on the other side though. But I've experimented with this a little bit. It might be a little difficult to, once this expandable cover is filled with wires, it gets a little bit more difficult to feed it through here and get it out again. If that's the problem, then I'll just run a piece from here and just put it into the hole, and then I'll do the same thing here on the other side. So it might end up being two pieces just to cover the visible wire, but we'll see. I only have one color wire, so I'm just going to mark one with some black marker. will be my black wire. My soldering iron does not get super hot. It doesn't get hot enough to melt the 1.5 millimeter, I think it is, solder that I have. Doesn't do a very good job, so what I'm going to do is cut probably 3 strands of this really thin stuff and twist them together so that I have a solder that'll melt easily. I think that looks good. I'll have to check it under some better lighting. Okay, I'm going to take some shrink tubing, pop that over this. I'm going to stagger these two so that I don't have my solder joints and shrink tubing in the same spot, which will make the wire fatter in that one area when I run it through that housing. So if I move it back a little bit, alright, I'm down on the floor, and I just took this piece of wire and put a little hook on the end and got really lucky as I was able to pop it out of that hole right away. Now I'm not sure if this is the way it's going to work best here, because I still have to worry about that housing. But for now, as I said, I might end up just using the housing here where it's visible, tucking it into that hole, and then just doing the same up top, putting a second piece on, tucking it down in here so that it won't be one continuous piece. It's not really for protection as much as it is for looks, so if I have to, I'll make 2 separate pieces. Let's see if I can get the second wire to come out of there. So I'm just putting a little right angle bend on the end of it. Now, it worked really well for the first one, but now there's another piece of wire in the way, so I imagine it'll be a lot more difficult. Okay, got them both. Wasn't too bad. Second one took a little more doing than the first. Okay. So yeah, the more I think about this, the more I think I'm just going to run that housing, cut off a piece a little longer than I need, and sort of shove it up in there. The nice thing about this expandable wire cover is that it will also compress back. So I've got that pushed on and taped to hold it down, and then on this end of the wire I've got my cut piece of shrink tubing. So So we'll solder that together, and then we'll get these cut and stripped and soldered. Then I'll take the tape off this expandable tubing, and it'll spring back this way. And if I'm lucky, I'll be able to kind of tuck it into that hole there. Alright, so that's what we end up with. I did manage to tuck the end of the expanding cover into that hole. I did kind of want it to be longer so it covered up all the white, but that's fine. Alright, well, we'll get a better tour of this thing once I get it outside. That'll be next time.